Us last week, and I wanted to have him on again this week for an hour to mainly take your phone calls. A lot of people want to talk to him. He's Pastor Lindsey Williams. Back in 1981, he wrote the book, The Energy Non-Crisis, now confirmed everything he wrote about, that the big oil companies made a deal with the Arabs back in the late 1970s to predominantly block major oil production and discovery in North America and to mainly buy from the Middle East if they would invest most of their money in T-bills. Now George Soros over the weekend announced that the end of the dollar has begun at Bretton Woods 2 in New Hampshire. We see CBS News, ABC News all reporting that in the next few months they're predicting $5 a gallon gas on average, higher in some areas of the country, lower in other areas. That information is now coming out. We were told all of this 6 months ago in October of 2010 by Lindsey with Ken Fromm, who was nearing his death in December with cancer, the former head of Atlantic Richfield Operations. He has another source who's a former CEO of another large oil company that we cannot reveal, but I know his name. He concurred, and again, he's talked to him since, and again this week, with more information that this is all engineered in the Middle East, a double crossing of the Arabs. That's the point you've got to briefly describe the, quote, double cross, what this means to the dollar and the Arabs, and the type of incredible pain. I mean, it's hard for me to pay for this gas, and I'm middle class. I see these poor mothers with 3-4 kids in a junker car. See it every time I'm gassing up, almost every time. Disheveled hair, kids acting up, trying to fill up a big gas guzzler with, $3.50, $3.75, what is it, $3.76 in growing's the national average. How are people going to pay for this? And then most of the transportation is based in petrochemical, so the food prices already going up from commodities are now going to go up even more. Everything that's delivered in this country going up, from restaurants to food to consumer items. There's just a huge amplifying effect here. Please continue, Lindsey Williams, then we're going to phone calls.
People can't pay for this. That's the idea. And the startling thing is, Alex, Mr. Fromm told me this 2-3 years ago before he died, when basically he said one day, Lindsey, I'm 87 years of age. I'm too old to care. Just tell everybody everything. And that's what I've tried to do. But I'm coming down to the point now that I'm seeing people get desperate. Let me go back just a moment and rebrief one thing, and then we'll go on to what's happening right now. I wrote my book, The Energy Non-Crisis, in 1980. In 1984, I was sitting in my living room in Kostilov, Alaska, where I was a missionary at the time, and Ken Fromm called me on the phone, and he said, Chaplain, would you like people to think you're a prophet? And I said, Ken, what do you mean? At that time, crude oil was $32 a barrel. And he said, the price of crude oil is going from $32 a barrel to $10 a barrel. I said, Ken, it can't happen. He laughed at me on the phone and he said, Chaplain, come on now, get off of it. He said, you sat in our board meetings. You know who controls the price of crude oil. He said, don't tell me we can't do this. And he did. He not only took it to $10 a barrel, he took it to $9 a barrel. And I said, Ken, why are you doing this? He said, Lindsey, for the first time, we want to teach OPEC a lesson. Teach OPEC, all of the oil-producing countries of the world, basically, and they thought that they had the whole world by the tail as far as crude oil is concerned. And he said, we're going to teach them a lesson. I said, what do you mean? He said, we're going to teach them who it is that controls the price of crude oil. And then, when just last night I heard Donald Trump coming over a major radio program, and he said 12 people control the price of crude oil in any given day. And I said, well, this is what Ken Fromm told me back 35 years ago. And I said, you're telling the people that this is what is happening? Now, you say, what can people do? I mean, what are people thinking? The CEO of Walmart this morning came out and said inflation is a major problem and is going up drastically. Do you realize that the ages of 18 through 29 years of age, young people, that the unemployment is 40%. Now they're talking about 9 and 10%. Ages 18 through 29, unemployment is 40%. Now, I'm hearing what Ken Fromm told me, and Alex, I'm still sitting here dumbfounded.
Yeah, he said 3.5 years ago, just to recap, he said 3.5 years ago that crude oil would go from $45 a barrel to $150 within 6 months. It did exactly that. Then he said, now it's going to drop down to 40. Everybody laughed at you. It went down to 40. Your other source said the same thing. Then he said 2.5 years ago, enjoy yourself for about 2.5 years. It's going to basically stay the same, go up a little bit, maybe to 65. But then once gold and things start going up, look for oil to just skyrocket, and it's going to destroy things by design. Then 6 months ago, he tells you now is the time, 6 months to a year, $150 a barrel. It's now begun. Now mainstream news says $200 to $300 a barrel possible. But regardless, you did call it. The other source called it. And this is destroying our society. People are like, well, why would Obama allow this? He is there to carry out an operation, just like Bush. They'll politically destroy them, get them out of office, rehabilitate him later in the media. There'll be a new puppet in who will take the blame. And the elite then never get the blame. The private Federal Reserve never get the blame. Their front men puppets that they finance get the blame. And so please continue, and then I want to start going to phone calls. What is the new info that you got from your former Big Three CEO and his wife? And for folks that don't know why they would tell somebody like Lindsey Williams, he was their chaplain. He was in on the board meetings. Then he wrote a book. Then Lindsey becomes a source. That's how high-powered people do. They have media people that they know will keep their word about not revealing them as a conduit to get information out. Just like FBI, federal marshals send me documents saying that they're really training to take on the American people, not Al-Qaeda. Now, that's how you get these relationships. Go ahead.
By the providence of God, Alex, everyone out there in your listening audience, let me state it very emphatically. By the providence of God, I was invited to be the chaplain of the elite of the world, and I did for 3 years. As a result, made friends of some of those people, and every time they have told me something, I have gone on InfoWars and told you exactly what they say. I take no credit for this, but I want to tell you the very latest of what's happening, and I will name the nation. This is brand new since last week. I'm still sitting here startled because I wondered what was going to happen next. I was just sent a chart showing the progression of the Muslim Brotherhood. Folks, please, don't take this lightly. They already know where they're going and what they're going to do, and it was published in the New York Times this past week. You go and get it for yourself, and it was posted on April the 5th of 2011, I guess it was, just a few days ago, and it said, Yemen's president, Allah Abdullah Saleh, is to be thrown to the crocodiles. Did you hear this? You remember that first it was Egypt, and I came on InfoWars 5 weeks before and told you there was going to be a crisis in the Middle East because I'd been told it by one of the elite. It happened 4 weeks later. Then it went to Libya. Last week, I said it's going to go to Yemen, Pakistan, Syria, and the last country will be Saudi Arabia. I did not know what the next country was going to be until this week. It is going to be, are you ready? Watch it. You'll see Yemen. This is your next target. They have already thrown the king of Yemen to the dogs. And listen, they reasons why that he's got to go, because he's no more of any use to them. So as a result, he's to be tossed out the window, so to speak. Then you're going to see this, and this is what I said on InfoWars. I was told this just after the Egyptian conflict took place. I went back to my informant, and I said, now, you said there was going to be a crisis in the Middle East, but tell me, where is this going, and why are you doing it? And this is the time that he told me what we just put in our new DVD presentation. Folks, please, we produced 3 hours of professionally done in digital viewing DVDs. Just within the past 2 weeks, we released this, showing everything that is taking place in the Middle East, why it's taking place that way. And he said to me, he said, Chaplain, this crisis, which started in Egypt and then they went to Libya, he said it'll spread to every Middle East oil-producing country until the price, folks, are you getting this? Until the price of crude oil goes to $200 a barrel. Now, I know, I've been seeing it. Alex has too over the past week. Some of the prognosticators are saying $300 a barrel. Don't you believe that? I want to stay with what the elite told me I'm not going to try to change their words. They said we want to take it to $200 a barrel. But out there in newsletters, you're seeing all over where it's going, and I just heard it this week. I've heard it from numerous sources. I've just got one newsletter right here, which I won't mention his name. He said, let's just default. Oh, my goodness. I sit here so startled because a year and a half ago, before Mr. Ken Fromm died, he said to me one day, he said, Chaplain, whenever the Federal Reserve begins to buy their own debt, he said, it's all over. And I was the first one, I guess, because of what Ken had told me. I dared, back about a year ago, to go on a number of radio programs and right here on InfoWars and say there's going to be a default on the national debt. And then when I was told what was going to happen in the Middle East just after the Egyptian conflict started and we produced this new DVD series, The Middle East, The Rest of the Story, I came out and said there positively is going to be a default on the national debt. And Alex, you and I both have seen it within the past 1 week's time. Numerous newsletter writers now are picking up on this word default and saying the American, that we can't stand it. It is. There's no way that we can keep on going this way.
And that will mean an incredible acceleration of dollar devaluation, which is a tax on our purchasing power, a tax on fixed incomes, a tax on savings. And the government has got a mission. This is all engineered, and that's why they're steaming full steam ahead. And the Republicans are talking about a $40 billion cut. Give me a break. Lindsey Williams is our guest, I promise, for the next 30 minutes. When we come back, the next segment, we will take your phone calls. Tony, Nick, Tim, George, Sean, and many others. The toll-free number to join us for questions only for Lindsey Williams on the economy, the dollar default that the globalists are engineering, what's happening with oil prices, his inside knowledge, 800-259-9231. And maybe we'll keep Lindsey a little bit in the next hour to continue with calls. I do have the continued radiation fallout, whitewash going on in the U.S., what they say safe or normal levels are being raised between 1,000 to 100,000 times, depending on the isotope. Another incredible article up at prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com. The TSA threatened the doctor and his wife when they already put their 6-year-old and their other children through the scanners. They then wanted to grope her, and they said, put her back in the scanner. And they said no, and they started arguing a little bit or questioning, and they were told there would be trouble. And they've told ABC News that if they didn't submit. So the headline is, parents say TSA made it clear there would be trouble if they refused to allow a 6-year-old daughter to be groped. That's the prisonplanet.com headline. On InfoWars, it's a simpler headline. TSA threatened parents of 6-year-old before groping. Is that the InfoWars headline I came up with? Yes, TSA threatened parents before 6-year-old groped. So that's up on Infowars.com. We've got to get the revolt kicked back into high gear. It's ongoing against the globalist. Side issue, Lindsey, and then we're going to get back into the larger issues of the economy. What is your view on the TSA groping Ron Paul, groping Jesse Ventura, groping small children, sticking their hands in the pants now, and then threatening the parents if they don't like it? This is pure goonism, training us to be basically loaded on the cattle cars.
Training us exactly as Hitler trained the Jews and others during the last war. It's no different. You've heard me say so many times, the name of the game is control, and this is exactly what the elite want. But let me give you one or two more things here, Alex, before we have to get into phone calls. It's so important. And again, I'll say I am so appreciative today to be on your show more than probably any time.
Well, we're appreciative to have you. Go ahead.
Yeah, my predictions and the things that I have to say do not come from tea leaves or divine revelation. Folks, I'm not a prophet. The elite personally have told me these things. Now, we have seen what they have done come to pass exactly as they told me it would. And I'm going to come down and give you a solution. I had to come up with something. People are so desperate. I've gotten so many emails. First of all, You have seen gold and silver prices do exactly what Mr. Fromm told me 3 years ago, and I begged all of you to buy it. I said, please don't hesitate one day, and now you're wishing you had taken Mr. Fromm's advice before he died. Gasoline prices are going exactly where they said it'll go. I do not think it'll go to $300 a barrel. I think it'll go to $150 to $200 a barrel, and Saudi Arabia will be the last country to be touched. The next one to be thrown to the wind is Yemen. Watch it. I just got this prediction this past week. The World Bank is now saying, within the past 2 weeks, they've said we've got to have a new reserve currency. A new reserve currency. What are they going to back it with? They're going to back it with gold and silver. Purchase gold and silver every bit you can. You think gold is hot price now, it's going to $3,000 an ounce. You're going to see silver to $50 to $100 an ounce. Mark my words again. Are you noticing, people, that the prediction that was given to me a year ago, there are still no shortages on the grocery store shelves? I know. All over talk show circuit, the show's host was saying, "Going to have a food shortage. Going to have a food shortage." Then I came along and was given this by one of my elite friends. He said, "No, Chaplain, there's not going to be any shortages of groceries on the grocery store shelf." But he said, "You're going to go hungry." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because the dollar is going to lose its purchasing power to the point that you won't be able to afford the groceries." Now, I want to give you a solution. This is something that has come. I had to do something in light of what these people have told me in the past few weeks. Please hear this, and let's go over it if we can. What is a solution? Alex, I think the only solution at this point is to expose the elite. Now, do you remember? I exposed gold and silver. I exposed the gasoline price. I told you what the World Bank said. I told you what the food was going to happen on the grocery store shelves. Now people go back and look at that and say, "Lindsey, everything the elite told you over these past 3 years has happened exactly like you said it." Now, there's such a credibility that has been gained that, Alex, when I come on InfoWars and say it again, people almost say, "Oh my goodness, it's going to take place this way." Alex, we've got to expose everything that the elite are doing, and when we expose them, because of your track record, and you've told it over the years, the truth exactly like it is, and with the track record of what they've given me over the years, if we can expose these people enough, to enough people across America, they are going to take it as gospel. And
stay there.